today on the Frontline Health podcast.
Well, kind of probably the no-brainer recommendation is to avoid like plague the folic acid and folic acid supplements, especially prenatal vitamins. That is number one. And obviously use methylfolate and methylated B vitamins in general, methylcobalamin for B12 and all that.
Hello, and welcome back to the Frontline Health podcast by Centurion, where we share health news, tips, and insights to help you take ownership of your health. I'm Evan Patrick. As always, Troy Duell, founder and CEO of Centurion Health, is here with me. And today we're joined by special guest Dora Thoma. She's a fertility and hormone coach who helps women balance their hormones and get pregnant with sustainable nutrition and lifestyle changes. Dora, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Evan and Troy. It is a great pleasure to speak about this topic. It is my passion, as probably you can imagine, and it hits close to home because I've gone through my own challenges. So, yeah, I'm excited to come and talk about all these women's health and fertility topics.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and kind of start out, if you don't mind, just giving us an overview of what fertility coaching involves and kind of how it differs from more of the traditional medical approaches to fertility issues.
Absolutely. Well, fertility coaching, especially specifically functional medicine, because this is where kind of like where my roots are, where I started from certification. I'm a functional medicine certified health coach. So my background is in the way that I was trained, and it was in functional medicine. So functional medicine looks at a holistic view of the body and looks for the root cause of specific symptoms. And oftentimes couples, women and couples, when they're facing infertility challenges, they think, well, I'm healthy and I've always been healthy, but why is this happening? And infertility or inability to conceive or having an unexplained infertility, right? All those issues, or they have a specific diagnosis, particularly, then it means that there is a root cause. There is an answer outside just, well, hormones are out of balance or not ovulating or so on and so forth. So we look at, right, as from a holistic standpoint, holistic lens of the whole body, what is it dealing with? And then we look for the root cause. And we work from bottom up, ensuring that the body has foundations that it needs to conceive naturally as possible. I obviously work with women that are going under fertility treatments, but it's about supporting the body, then preparing it for what is about to come, whether natural conception or fertility treatment. And at the same time, we want to understand, and this is where comes education, that fertility, it's not just something that we decide one day. It's also a decision by the body, whether we wanted to believe it or not. And fertility is not, and conception and pregnancy is not a vital need for the body. The body always wants to look for survival, wants to make sure that it's going to stay alive and it's not under threat. But if there are insults, if there is sickness, if there are nutrient depletions, if there is immune system is overacting, if there are infections, if there so on, any sort of imbalance that takes the body out of that safe mode, it's going to prioritize those vital needs first, not fertility. So when we kind of get an understanding of, okay, for fertility, it happens only when the body feels safe, then we can finally look at that holistic whole body approach. Other
Which
things
is,
that,
yeah, I was
yeah,
going to
go
say
ahead.
that is totally different from the normal way that when people go through fertility, they start chasing after symptoms as opposed to the foundational issues that are going on. And that approach of looking underneath the hood, if you will, and saying, all right, what is happening in the body? what do we need to start to rectify and remedy in order to get their body to a place where it is in the best chance possible to become pregnant and stay pregnant is the key to the whole thing. So I really appreciate your stance and desire to go down that path, because I think that's where we've gone wrong within Western medicine for years now. But what was it that kind of drove you to that functional medicine piece? Where was that something you grew up in Romania, where it was more of a functional medicine type background, or is that something that you picked up when you came to the States?
It was a big tub, really. Obviously, I grew up in Romania. Well, 24 years of my life I spent in my home country. Um, Obviously, and living in a post-communist country that was developing, that was trying to kind of build itself from top. We did not have, particularly from the beginning, all the Western foods and all the Western um, commonalities and commodities. But so in a way, I kind of grew more with natural resources just because of the environment. But coming in here in the United States, as I going through life and building myself up, building myself, becoming somebody, right? As an adult, as a young adult, I was starting to face more and more health challenges. So, going to the medical route, just kind of the traditional way, and I would still get answers. Well, we need to put you on birth control. We need to put you on this medication. We need to, oh, it's just in your head, or we cannot do anything unless you want us to put you on medication for the rest of your life. And so kind of those fear-mongering approaches, they never felt right to me. And
Mm.
I consider myself a very pretty intuitive person. So I just felt like it doesn't sound like it actually solves the issue. So my background, my back in Romania, I my college degree is in accounting. So
Huh.
nothing to do with health. When I moved here in the United States, I started working in hotels, hospitality. I also have a postgraduate diploma in hospitality. So my world, it was hospitality and then sales, and that burned me out. And that's kind of the tipping point where had to focus on my health, and then that's where I've evolved and discovered the world of functional medicine, the world of medicine that makes sense. This is what
Yeah,
I like to how to say I like to see it. Um, I like things that are make logic. I think that's the background of math and science.
that's
Uh,
right. Going back to accounting with making
ex
logic of things.
yes, and looking at numbers. But realizing having PCOS, having or polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is a very common condition in women. It's also a very common condition in women, especially trying to conceive. Discovering that I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune condition to the thyroid, had pretty intense gut symptoms, gut issues that I had to work. And again, the Western medical world could not give me an answer. And then once I stumble upon literally functional medicine, just this completely different world just opened up, and I was absolutely amazed and fascinated, and just kind of dove into it and said, "This is my place. These are my people. This is where I want to uh, explore more and be in."
Yeah, it's refreshing when you find that your body truly does make sense and it is logically built. And there are certain things when you have certain inputs or don't have certain inputs that it seems to work really, really well. And understanding that you just have to start to look at it as a puzzle and put those pieces together. So kudos to you for doing that, and your journey as we've seen it and heard it today. So well done.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Dora, thank you so much for sharing all of that. You really have a fascinating story, and I think it's so cool. It seems like we talk to people frequently who they have come from outside of the traditional medical framework, and it kind of gives them a unique perspective because they've faced challenges of their own, or they have had members of their family or friends that they've seen go through challenges that the typical Western medical model has not been able to solve.
Mhm.
And so it's really cool to hear you say all of that. And I'm wondering, as you work with clients to try to address some of those needs or challenges that they have, what are some of the most common fertility challenges your clients face, and how do you help them navigate those hurdles?
Yeah, I typically work with any couple that is facing challenges. But the top, most common ones would first be unexplained infertility, especially those hidden imbalances like nutrient deficiencies, chronic stress, or low-grade inflammation that are not identified by the fertility clinic, right? Especially usually the unexplained infertility diagnosis is given by the fertility clinic once they've done all the testing, quote unquote. Um, and they do extensive. So I don't want to bash onto it onto the fertility clinic or doctors. They're doing amazing job out there doing, but they're only focused on very specific things. But again, as I was mentioning earlier, our body doesn't work in silo. Our reproductive organs don't work in silo. Our thyroid doesn't work in silo. No organ, no tissue in the body works in silo. So we have to look at the whole picture. So looking at those like things that are outside of the reproductive organs, very often we see some imbalances that once we address them, uh, fertility comes back. Other things would be hormonal imbalances. So this is kind of like the big umbrella with hormones, PMS, short luteal phase, low progesterone levels, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or endometriosis, irregular cycles, whether or not with PCOS. And we target that with nutrition and lifestyle shifts, sometimes additional testing and any of that, but just making sure that hormones are in the right balance because they work like in a symphony. Um, Other things, which is kind of like my my place. I love working with post women in their postpartum phase who want to conceive again. So when they have their second, third, fourth, fifth, and oftentimes they're depleted. I have a lot of clients who have gotten pregnant easily with two, one, two, three, and then they're trying once again. They're like, why am I feeling like this? Why I cannot conceive? I've been able to conceive before and no issues. And it goes to postpartum depletion. In our modern world, we lost this understanding that pregnancy is very, very depleting. Uh, Pregnancy as well as breastfeeding is depleting the body with from a lot of nutrients. And when it takes time to replenish that, it's not overnight, it's not in 6 weeks. Um, it takes a lot of time and a lot of intention and having a brand new baby. It just completely changes everything. Um, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioned just a few minutes ago kind of nutrition and some of those things.
Yeah.
How much does nutrition, supplements, sleep, exercise, those type things of your clients, if they get that right, what percentage of them are successful, and how much does that all play into the fertility piece as a whole?
Well, they all have play a part, right? If we want to look, again, my analytical brain always looks at charts and pie charts and anything like a graphic. So if we look at a pie chart, everything has a little piece of the pie.
Hmm.
So if we have a little bit of not enough of nutrition, let's say, but too much of something else, then the balance is not well is not very good. So we need to put input enough in each piece so we can create that wholeness, that equilibrium and balance. Um, some people, I do have clients who have an exceptional nutrition. It's not about doing perfectly. It's about following the 80-20 rule. So 80% following the general fertility diet with any tricks that they need, and 20% enjoy a piece of cake, enjoy vacation, enjoy whatever, right? So kind of allowing ourselves to live, right? And not to always restrict. Stress is a huge thing, and limiting beliefs. I think those are kind of the hardest ones to break because, um, again, our society uh, is it has created this illusion in our minds that we need to push, and especially from a woman's standpoint, we are put into the situation that we always have to please, we always have to do things, we always have to do more to please XYZ, and the people around us, whether boss, husband, family, also. And then we feel bad and we feel responsible for not being able to carry, because that is the ultimate responsibility to provide a child. So those limiting beliefs, obviously this when I identify something in my conversation with my clients, I can kind of like scratch off and identify, well, once it reaches a point, I refer out, since I'm not a therapist, don't have any license in that, but it's about kind of identify first, understanding, having awareness. Other things that can be sleep, can be environmental toxins. This is huge, environmental toxins, although I've seen a lot of people making a lot of changes, eating more organic, avoiding um, phthalates, parabens, and chemicals in personal care products, but
I was
also, yeah.
uh, just real quick, what are some of
Well,
those environmental toxins that our listeners may have heard that and they're thinking, oh, well, I don't live next to a power pole or I don't live next to some chemical cesspool.
mhm.
What are the more common environmental toxins that you're talking about that people can start to look at and go, maybe this is part of what we're dealing with?
Well, I always start with water, making sure that we have clean water. We are 60% water. Our body is made of
Hmm.
67%, and we drink a lot of water. We should be drinking at least, right, an average 8 cups of water every single day. It's more than food at the end of the day, if we think about it. So, the water is very important. It's one of the essential core elements that we need in order to support fertility. And in our tap water, um, we have plenty of chemical substances, heavy metals, um, that can disrupt hormones, can increase oxidative stress, which can cause damage to the ovum, to the egg, the female egg, or the sperm, right? We do not want to forget about that counterpart, the male part, right? So it always impacts that's the beauty of talking about fertility. It's not just talking about only women. The same things apply to most of the things are applied to men too. So uh first thing is one, heavy metals exposure, but also plastics, BPA, and all their family. So I always recommend to minimize exposure to plastics. At the same time, we talk about exposure to forever chemicals like PFAS, which are found in water, again, in tap water, it can be found in non-stick pans, it can be found in so many other things that are water repellent or non-stick, right? Um, and then we have those parabens and phthalates that are found either in personal care products to preserve or to maintain the smell, or because they're nicely smelling, fragrances as well, since I mentioned smelling. They all contain um, a soup of chemicals that can disrupt our hormones. And of course, we're using a little bit of drop of this, right? How harm it can be. But especially women, we put on our body over 300. And this, I'm quoting from like, I don't know, 2018 or something, study, right? But probably right now it's even more. Maybe hopefully it's less. I'm not sure, but let's round it up to around 300 chemicals every single day between personal care products, between uh, things around the air, the water, um, so they add up. They add
That's a
up one top of each other.
that's a huge number. I
Mm,
knew that it was high, but I never knew that it was around 300.
yeah.
So Evan, you got to stop using the pomade. It's getting you, man.
Troy's been giving me a hard time about my hair care products that have those phthalates and some things in them. So I'm working on making some changes myself, which is something that we talk about a lot here. It's easy to get overwhelmed by kind of all of these environmental toxins and things that are out there. I guess kind of the bottom line is there are a lot of things that are outside of our control. But we do know that there are certain things that are within our control, and we like to encourage our listeners to kind of take ownership of their health and not worry so much about the things that they can't control, but do what they can do that is within their control. So I'm curious, based on what we talked about today, or really any issues relating to fertility, what practical advice would you give to our listeners who are trying to conceive?
Well, first of all, absolutely what you just said. Take it slow. Don't try to make it everything perfect. We have things that are outside of our control, and that is fine. We need to allow our body to be able to do what it's supposed to do, meaning, let's say in the example of environmental toxins, the body can filter and can detoxify. The goal is to minimize the load, to lower the load of toxins, and also bring in nutrients that the liver and the body required to do what it's supposed to do, aka detoxifying, or growing a healthy egg, or having healthy hormones, or maintaining a stable inflammation level, or lowering oxidative stress, and kind of keeping things calm and safe, like I was mentioning earlier. So that is definitely the first step. From a nutritional standpoint, I always say prioritize protein-rich breakfast within the 60 to 90 minutes of waking to stabilize blood sugar and hormones. That means also having coffee after breakfast, not having coffee before breakfast. Um, if, so getting some good quality sleep, at least 7 to 9 hours, usually women need to get a restful sleep. Obviously, there can be lifestyle changes and tweaks can be done in the morning or in the evening to improve that quality of sleep, but at least getting those and not cutting those short, those hours of sleep, which are so important. And especially for men, men actually make their testosterone while they're sleeping. So sleep is so important for men. And in my practice, I've seen men dropping their testosterone very early in like even 20s or early 30s, and having to take testosterone as exogenous like hormone replacement that can kill fertility. So especially the men that are looking to get having to have kids in the future. Obviously reducing toxins. So really filtering the water with a quality filter, not just the fridge filter. Fridge filter only takes out chlorine, but not all the other things that we mentioned earlier.
So do you have one or two that you recommend when it comes to a filter like that?
Yes, my two favorite, like, I have more, but the top ones would be countertop is Berkey. I like it. It's in a stainless steel container. Um, it's a container, so it's a countertop, and
Okay.
it works with gravity. And another one is Pure Effect, it's called, and it goes under. It's a system that you hook it to the water line, so you can put it under the sink, on top of the sink, or they have a whole house system. This is kind of like the one of the best. There are also reverse osmosis systems But often with reverse osmosis, you have to make sure that it's remineralizing the water and not stripping off all the essential nutrients.
So what about those of us who say, "Hey, I've got a filter on my refrigerator." Is that good
No,
enough?
no, that's
Really?
not good enough. The,
So
the
what do you need to look for to say this is going to do what it needs to do to help us kind of take ownership of our water?
Well, first of all, we don't need to use the fridge filter. Uh,
Okay.
unless we use, I mean, with a fridge filter, it's tricky. We can say, well, you can put a whole house filtration system to filter in so all the water get inside the house. But oftentimes fridges they have all sorts of tubes, and those tubes often they grow mold inside. So, and it's hard to clean. So it's not only all the chemicals that kind of come in from the pipes, but also what's brewing inside the unit. So I'm always kind of don't have a lot of wiggle room for and acceptance for the fridge filter. I would rather say if you want to have ice, on ice from the main filter, ideally have like a sink or like a countertop filtration system to get that quality water. And then you can make your ice, or you can drink your water, cook with it, and do all the things. Um, so yeah, not a very tolerable fridge filter, sorry.
That's all right. No, we want to step on some toes every once in a while, and that's what I need to hear to be reminded of we've got an under the counter um, filter system, which is good, but we still lean towards the refrigerator just because it's cold. Um, but we need to be reminded of that. But one thing I did want to touch on, a lot of our listeners are familiar with MTHFR, and that's one of part of their journey because we have a product that deals with that in Bump DHA and Bump Mini. But what do you have for advice for those people who are dealing with MTHFR? If you could give them one or two pieces of advice to kind of walk through that system with them.
Well, kind of probably the no-brainer recommendation is to avoid like plague the folic acid and folic acid supplements, especially prenatal vitamins. That is number one. And obviously use methylfolate and methylated B vitamins in general, methylcobalamin for B12 and all that. Um, and but on the other side, from a nutritional standpoint, it's always safer to go with food first. So, for example, folate comes from the I think it's Greek. It's foliage, right? It's coming from the
Mhm.
word foliage, which means leaves. So leafy greens are rich in folate. So if we increase our consumption of folate from leafy greens, we will support our genes to make better and to work better. And obviously, we'll support other systems. It doesn't just have that, right? And from an avoidance standpoint, um, always avoid or at least read ingredient lists. A lot of foods that are grain-based or and
Hmm.
pastries, baked goods, anything like that, cookies, anything that is made of flour, oftentimes they're enriched with folic acid and
Yeah.
all iron and all those niacinamide and all other non-essential nutrients, even on organic products, right? So
Yeah.
it's not just because it is said it has the label organic crackers, it means that isn't enriched. So always flip the box, read the ingredients. If you really want to buy that product, avoid the ones that has says enriched flour.
Dora, that is such great advice. You are speaking our language right now. So we appreciate it so much for you to just share all of that and help get the message out there about those things because a lot of people just simply don't know. Even, a lot of the healthcare providers that we work with are still learning the difference between that synthetic folic acid and the natural forms of folate that pregnant women need in their diets. So thank you so much for sharing that. This has been a great conversation all around. We really appreciate your time. Where can people find and follow your work?
Absolutely. They can find me on social media. I'm very active on Instagram. My handle is fertility to wellness. I obviously have a website. The website has the same name, fertilitytowellness.com. I also have a physical office in McKinney, Texas. So if anybody is local and is interested to see me, I'm obviously available there as well as virtual, of course. And I work with people all around the world.
Thank you so much, Dora. And
My pleasure.
everyone, yes, thank you. And thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Frontline Health Podcast by Centurion. As always, we encourage you go out and take ownership of your health today because you are your best health advocate. If you enjoyed what you heard today on the podcast, please consider leaving us a review. We would love to hear your feedback and connect with you further. You can also follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube. And for safe, effective, and affordable health and wellness products made in the USA, visit www.centurion.health. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.